Thank you, Kristen. My name is Brad Scoggin, and I am the CEO and co-founder of ArborXR. And today, I get to interview one of our favorite customers. And I'm not just saying that because he's sitting here. But Volvo, I think, has done VR the right way. Very intentional about the proof of concept from the beginning. And then there has been strong, healthy growth over the last several years. And I think we've known each other now almost 3 years, 2.5 years. We met at MWC in Barcelona a few years ago. And a fun fact that I just thought of this morning when I was doing my last-minute preparation, I think we had our Wall Street Journal debut together last year, which is kind of fun, right? Was that right?
Awesome.
Yes, right? So there's a lot, I think, that we can all learn from the way that Volvo has deployed XR. Before we jump into that, just want to give a little bit of context on Arbor. We've been doing this now for almost 10 years, and I see some other people in here who maybe have been doing it for 10 years, which is a long time. Is there any 10-year anniversary birthday in VR in the room? Yes, thank you. There's a few of us. So it's been a long time, and I think what's been exciting for us is that in the very beginning, what motivated us to jump into XR was the potential for life change, and 10 years later, here we are, and that potential has become a reality. And for those of us who have been on a long journey, I think it should be encouraging. We work with almost 70 of the Fortune 500 today. We're in 90 countries, and we're seeing companies and universities sign up on a regular basis. There really is a move of moving learning and training into VR at a massive scale. And kind of along the journey for Arbor, the role that we've seen ourselves play is one of removing friction and helping this technology scale and get to life change faster. And so for us, the way that that has manifested is as an MDM. And so we are a mobile device management built specifically for XR. And so there's kind of 3 core things we do. We help you manage your devices, manage the content, and then manage what happens inside the headset. And a couple other quick things I always like to say here that I think it's important, especially if you're early in your journey. A lot of the hardware companies are now launching with their own first-party MDM. And we think those are great when you're just getting started with 5 or 10 headsets. But one of the biggest issues that we have found is that they are not device agnostic. And about 80% of our customers use a mixed fleet. And sometimes that's because different headsets are better for different use cases, but also people just don't like vendor lock. And so sometimes they diversify for that reason alone. And then another point that I think is important to mention is the legacy UEMs. Every one of the, if we go back a slide, every one of those 65-ish Fortune 500s uses Intune or VMware for their cell phones and tablets, but when it comes to XR, they use Arbor because the traditional UEMs just don't work. And the reason that I always like to harp on this is because for the XR champions in the room, you know that you often have one shot at a first impression, and if you don't make it seamless for leadership, it's hard to move to the next step. So let's jump into the star here. So Johan is, as Kristen said, Johan is over 3D mobile and XR for the Volvo group. Volvo has a wide array of use cases, and a really cool point here is that for the last 5 years now, every one of their trucks has gone through a one-to-one VR CAD review. Is that
Most
right?
of them, yes.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Let's say every one of them. It sounds better,
Everyone
right?
is good.
Put it everyone.
Is good.
And trained over 5,000 technicians. So maybe, Johan, we could get started with talking about the scope and the use of VR across Volvo Group.
Yeah, so I have before I quickly a little bit about my background. So I was been at Volvo Group, which are not doing cars. We're doing Volvo trucks, Mack trucks, Renault trucks, construction equipment, buses, and drivetrains. But I'm coming from being the vendor's vendor, selling eye tracking into headsets. And for me, it was joining the customer, and it was a very, very interesting journey and quite different when you're sitting on the device side thinking what next small feature is needed. And that's why I'm here kind of to share that part of the experience. And at Volvo, we are 100,000 employees. I think we have 17 manufacturing sites. We are basically in 118 countries, something like that. So what we use XR for is basically every part of the product life cycle of our product. So when we design the trucks, we use ultra-realistic VR to kind of see that the design is right. When you design it, the engineers testing the CADs typically collaborative. For sales and marketing, we do some marketing events with VR and also AR. For driver training, for technician training is the biggest one, driving the most use cases. Planning, manufacturing, operations, what else? Basically all use cases that are traditionally used is in some way or part in shape in a scaling phase.
I want to double tap specifically on using XR for designing and reviewing trucks. What's the value add there?
What you can't do if you look on the CAD, you can't kind of experience it. Yeah. So we do the reviews in one-to-one with mechanical feedback or model-wise. Not, of course, you don't get the virtual beam in your head, but you can. One example was. We were reviewing a manufacturing station, and then we said, well, I'm like 6'2", I will hit my head in the beam, and you wouldn't have seen that unless you've kind of tried it. And doing it together is kind of super key. So it's not only one-on-one, but it's always a group. So we have a numerous number of labs across the world where we do have VR reviews.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's powerful to have the visual spatial ahead of time, right? Let's talk about device management. What was it in your journey? And as I said at the beginning, I think you all have done a really good job from intentional pilot up through scale. At what point in that journey did you realize that device management was necessary to achieve the scale you wanted? So
I joined 2.5 years ago. So I mean, the fundamental need was had already been identified. But when I joined, as I said in the beginning, I was looking, okay, nice, great features, in my case, eye tracking, what they can do with eye tracking. And then, oh shit, how do I get my device on the network? How do I deploy my applications? How do I do the kiosk modes, et cetera, et cetera? And before, I was more in a startup environment where we could kind of deploy them as a developer. They could just load it on, and we used some basic management tool. But it was very clear, basically immediately, when I joined that, oh, this will be a big thing. And then at that point in time, one of the vendors' own MDM system was discontinued. So we sat there with a discontinued headset. Not headset, but almost, which was kind of a pain. So then that's when we started the big kind of process of purchasing a new one.
Yeah. And one of the things I mentioned in the opening, we talk about this a lot, is just the pain of using a legacy MDM, whether that's Intune or VMware, there's several of them. For Volvo, why were those not, maybe if you could unpack that a little bit for folks who haven't gone down that path, why don't those work well for XR?
Well, they kind of do, in some sense, but they don't know the product that they're selling, and it's incomplete. So we made a kind of a full 9-month purchasing cycle when we went out to everyone, including the one you mentioned. And we have severe security requirements. We also have the need to be able to distribute the applications in a secure way. So we, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a formal list of requirements, and one of those requirements you mentioned earlier was, yeah, it has to be device agnostic. Yeah. It cannot be tied to a specific device, because to be honest, I don't even know everyone using XR at Volvo. We're 100,000 people. And okay, someone doing some small POC in Korea, and then they want to kind of, oh, I want to deploy this. Okay, so how do I do that? And then we will have a centralized system, Arbor, and then it needs to be kind of set up. And if it's tied to a headset specifically, I mean, some headsets are not sold everywhere in the world. You can't buy some type of headsets, and we are located in every country. Right. So that was one thing. The incumbents, they do have on paper the features, and they may be there, but you also need to have a speaking partner. Because you will evolve as a company as you mature in different parts, and you need to have a party that can cope with it. So we came down to that there were basically only 2 there, and we chose you.
Yeah, which is awesome. That's why we're here today, right? We appreciate that. You talk about, Korea or this, you're at scale. You have operations in several countries. How do you balance the needs of having things centrally located and having control from a central spot? But as you said, there may be POCs happening that you don't even know anything about.
So it's actually a multifaceted and good question, because initially each island in the company have different maturity. What the most mature is kind of VR training for us, and Johan, a colleague, he will have a speech here in 414-103 if you want to hear more about that. But you also have a big IT department that don't know shit about XR, to be honest. They think it's another mobile because, oh, it's Android. Okay, yes, hook it up as an Android device. No, you can't. So the asset management part is something that we are now driving into the central part of IT. But the whole distribution of the applications are typically specific to each department's needs. So that's need to be localized to the department. So a hierarchical right permission system is really, really important. So you need to think through a little bit kind of how you operate and be very flexible, because the maturity levels are very different also within the company.
Yeah, we've seen that too, working with several large companies. It's interesting, and probably some of you have experienced it as well, that you have different departments in the same company that don't even know the other departments using VR. They're at different, in the same way often the different companies are at different levels of maturity. The same thing can be true inside different departments within the same company. And I would say also what we have seen across our user base is that the training, we probably all know that, but the training is what's most mature. And I think, people are learning faster, people retain more information, and it's just, there's such a powerful and easy ROI to see in the training use case that we've seen that for sure excelling and growing the fastest. When you think about other use cases though, within Volvo, what do you see as the most untapped potential for maybe even AR and MR as things go forward?
I think the boring answer, I have one boring and one more fun maybe, but the boring answer is dig where you stand. I think the VR training, there's so much more we can do. There's so much, the use case is great, the ROI is great, so do more of what you are doing. I think that's probably number one. Number two, where workshop use cases where we have technicians in the field. You can identify the truck and then add on parts that are to replace, find cable breakages, you can find what procedures do I need to do, and so that's those AR use cases, probably primarily driven from phone first, because that's what's deployed. And then when it comes to real wearables, wearables is really good, like the Meta Ray-Bans or the smart glasses. That is something, it doesn't need to be a full set, full-fledged Apple Vision Pro in a glasses form factor, because it's not there. So smart glasses with protective glass, please put protective glass on, because no one wants to have some things in the face.
Right.
So manufacturing operators, they do not want that. They do not want to have cameras. So it's smart glasses is kind of an interesting, and I think they will evolve, as we've seen, to more and more features. Then they will need to be deployed with applications. You need to kind of be able to authenticate. But I think smart glasses and the evolution thereof is probably the most interesting part. And you need to support that as well, because the applications will be there. As soon as you have, I think it was, someone talked about a local LLM in the glasses. That you want to train yourself, typically, if it's a llama, then you need to have control of that. So you very early need to have control also of the application in those smart glasses.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And I think you said the boring often is what pays the bills. And so I like that, dig where you are. We consistently see the training having the biggest impact, but there is so much potential with AR. We've talked about it for a long time. I think we're starting to see a little bit of the remote assist at some level of scale kind of start to have an uptick. But that goes back to a platform like Arbor, where you can manage all those devices in one location.
Yes, it's true.
Sorry, you took a breath. I didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah, I wanted to let you go. Yeah.
So remote
Endorse
assist is,
me, yeah.
no. Remote assist is, we've been playing around with that and have it in the field actually, as well on phones.
Well, maybe as we move to a close here, and we can be available after to chat if there's some questions, but for the companies in the room or the folks in the room who are just getting started, I think it's always great, what are one or two pieces of advice that you would give if you could go back and do it again?
Yeah, so I really think what you want to do and how you want to scale it. Not from a technical perspective, but from a user perspective. Who am I kind of addressing? Am I addressing the developers of my company? Well, then the developer, they can do most everything. You need to kind of have control of the device. But if you have kind of real users that doesn't necessarily know what an XR headset is, you need to have control of your basics IT infrastructure. And I will also advise to start on applications that you do not need to connect to your own network or your own systems. So we have mainframes. That's a different thing to connect into our mainframe than to kind of an island showcase in marketing. But you need to kind of plan that you will eventually connect to your own systems. And to be able to do that, you have to have an MDM system. You have to have control of that. And you need also to educate the IT department what is special with XR versus a phone. So I think through what are the use cases and how you want to use the devices.
Yeah, I think we've heard often that being forward-thinking and taking the time on the front end to really think about where you want to go, and starting off with the right foundation, which sounds like a no-brainer, though. It's just so important. We started a podcast a couple years ago. If you felt like this was helpful, we've done, 50 or so interviews like this with Johan, with several of our customers, and some really powerful ROI stories, and just different groups and different industries walking through their journey and some of the things that they've learned. So we appreciate everybody coming. Johan and I will stick around the back if you have any questions, and then we've got a booth if you want to come by and chat more. We'd love to visit with you. Thanks for coming.